guilty! Not guilty! Not guilty! Not guilty!
Jury nullification!
Jury nullification!
Jury nullification!
Jury nullification!
Jury nullification!
Jury nullification!
God bless the Patriots!
God bless the Patriots!
God bless the Patriots!
God bless the Patriots!
God bless
God bless the Patriots! John, do you want to stop and eat, or do you want me to just set this down with everybody?
I think I'm just, I'll eat some. What is it there?
It's in, oh wait, so it's in my hand here, sorry. Doing too many things at a time. We are still not done with the prosecution. Holy cow, can the prosecution talk, but I'm not going to, he's still talking, I'm not going to say there's anything intelligent coming out of his mouth. And I'm still going to say that Las Vegas doesn't have anything on Portland when it comes to courtroom etiquette or professionalism, even if they were incredibly biased the entire time towards the government. At least they didn't sound like a 6th grade dropout.
It's okay with the dog.
Okay, Julie.
On the sidewalk.
The prosecution is basically representing their entire case. All their videos, all the longbow videos in their closing arguments. This is their closing arguments, is their entire case again. So all the same videos have been played. They've re-shown all the Facebook posts. They've re-showed any posts where somebody tagged one of the defendants, if they liked something. It was on Facebook. Literally, we have Facebook in trial here. There's been a few things that they showed as evidence that were kind of funny, because not very long ago, Gavin Syme put together a few, I don't know, he took screenshots and pasted them together to show people who are, working against the message. And these people mocked him and said, Facebook session or court is now in session. This is the exact evidence. It's actually on trial today. The prosecution has taken, cut and pasted pieces of Facebook comments and put them together on one page and then is presenting them. There's a picture in the background, then there's a few comments on one side, and date and time at the top, and it's kind of funny because of all the mockery that Gavin got. That's actually how they run court here. That's actual evidence. Facebook posts. It doesn't matter who's been running the page. Sorry guys, it's really bright out here. Doesn't matter who's been running the page, what the context of it was. They're cut and pasting it together, and that's the evidence against these guys. I will say that most of the things that I'm seeing, besides a few things, that there was quite a bit of puffing going on with the guys in the comments that they made on Facebook. Most of it, the videos and whatnot that they're showing of the defendants are very good. They're showing videos of the standoff, and at the end of it, you just can't help but nod your head and say that's exactly what that's there for. They actually said that. They actually said that. Let's see. The judge said in jury instructions that a gun is a dangerous tool. A dangerous weapon. Robert got removed from the courtroom today. I'm sorry, he left the courtroom when he yelled out treason, and then he was followed out by multiple marshals. So I waited. I said to the woman next to me, somebody's gonna get up and follow him out. Marshals just followed him, but no, nobody got up and followed him out. I was not happy. Finally said, dag nabbits. I stood up and followed him out, went and stood next to him. They were detaining him. And we had some nice conversations, and Robert read some scripture, and we de-escalated the situation because they were trying to impede us with threats, force, and intimidation, and not let us out of the building. But Robert did a beautiful job reading them scripture, and we tried to educate them a little bit on the rights of the people, and then they finally let him go without arresting him. He cannot go back into the courthouse.
And I'm happy about that, to be out on the sidewalk. Yep. That's all I wanted, was to go out on the sidewalk,
That's right.
but make a statement.
I told the marshals when we were standing there, I said, that's the only truth that's been spoken in the courtroom all day is when he yelled out treason. And if we have free speech, then I'm not sure what you guys are so upset about. At any rate, the judge said that a gun is a very dangerous weapon and that it is never to be used for self-defense against your government. And in fact, that resisting is never allowed when the government is involved. If a federal agent or an officer tells you to stop, you stop, period. It doesn't matter. Ask 6 million Jews about this one, they know. So they said that it does not matter at the end of the day what those agents are doing, that even if they're in the wrong, that you are to comply at all costs, no matter what it costs you. So I'm not going to do a real detailed update right now because I'm hungry and I'm annoyed. They tried to keep me out of the courtroom for my shirt. I have a coat here and I headed in through the scanners, and in order to go through the scanners I had to take off my coat. Of course, in order to go in the courtroom you have to zip up your coat if you have a message or any white lettering or anything. And but to get in the courtroom I had to take my coat off to go through the scanners. Well, then the agent tells me now I can't enter because I showed him my shirt. And I said, but you told me to take off my coat, put it through the scanner. If you hadn't told me that and I could walk through the scanner with my coat, you would have never known what my shirt said. And I said, and on top of that, I wore this same shirt 2 days ago and I had to zip up my coat to enter the courtroom, which I did. I have no problem with that. I'm not trying to influence the jury here. And he said, I'm sorry, that's an unauthorized shirt. You're not entering the courtroom. So then I continued discussing with him and I said, I could turn my shirt inside out. And he said no, and I said, well, how about I just take off my shirt and wear my coat as a shirt. Then when I head in to go through the scanners, you're either going to have to let me leave my shirt on or you're going to get yourself a little Vegas show for me to get in the courtroom. So he paused and thought about that for a moment, and he told me I could go ahead and go through. So we're all thankful for that, right? But he did tell me that he was going to call upstairs and let them know that an unauthorized shirt was entering the courthouse, and to make sure that that my jacket was zipped up. So as soon as I got off the elevator upstairs, I immediately announced to the 5 officers that that the unauthorized shirt had arrived, but they wouldn't see it because it was zipped up under my coat, but that, you know, everybody could stand at ease, that it's okay. Let's see, before that, Robert got removed from the courtroom. The prosecution is still like a high school dropout when he's speaking. He's actually saying like. He says, when these men say something and they're talking like, oh, I don't know, and I'm thinking, this is how you communicate in a federal courthouse in a trial where these men are facing 93 years in prison. That he made it very clear that these men were the aggressors, because as soon as they were told that the cows were to be impounded, that the only option for the American people is to comply. And that's just so ironic, because when I read the United States Constitution, it actually says the contrary. Now, when I left the courtroom a few minutes ago, I had to go out at almost 1 because they still hadn't stopped, or it was 12:30 and they hadn't stopped for lunch, and everybody was tired and hot. And one of the marshals was standing outside, and he was trying to tell me that I don't understand what it would be like to live under a dictatorship. So then we started talking about federal land ownership, and we started talking about what does it mean when the federal government owns 89% of a state? And he said, well, it just means the state has to comply with the federal government because they own the land. And I said, so is the state at that point in charge of themselves and their own people through their elected officials, or are they under the federal government's ruling? He said they're under the federal government's. I said that's a dictatorship. Just because you are currently okay with what the federal government is ruling doesn't mean that the federal government is not acting as a dictator onto the lands of Nevada. And he says, well, we have a First Amendment right. I said, we don't have a First Amendment right. Evidence was just admitted in this court 2 years after the stand up in Bunkerville, where one of them, I can't remember if it was Todd or one of the others, shared something saying thank you to those who came and stood at Bunkerville. That was evidence used saying he is still a part of this conspiracy. So I said he doesn't have his First Amendment right. Facebook posts and comments he made after the stand up should be protected under the First Amendment, and instead we have memes, we have likes. He literally is having the like button saying this is what he said to this comment. He said thumbs up, like. And I'm thinking, if this is the best you've got, like, this is, I'm gonna say it because he kept saying it, this is ridiculous. Absolute ridiculous. They have a shot if the jury, I believe, uses jury nullification. But outside of that, they basically said again this morning that they are not to interpret the law. They are to listen to the judge's interpretation of the law. And if they broke the charges, which the charges are also basically the same, they're a ton of the same things. I mean, you've got impeding a federal officer through threats, force, and intimidation. You've got brandishing a weapon in front of an officer, which is essentially a threat. And then you've got carrying a weapon in an act of a crime or whatever. So, I mean, you've got, it's all the same thing. And they piled on 19 charges to these defendants for essentially the same alleged crime, which should be protected under, you know, double jeopardy and everything, but it's not. So this is how they get people to plea out. They just pile on charge after charge after charge, and they scare the hell out of people. They plea out. That's why they have a 98% or 93% conviction rate through plea deals. At any rate, they will, I believe that that they will convict unless they use jury nullification, because, you know, when you say it's a crime to carry a weapon in the presence of a federal officer and you have pictures of the person carrying the weapon, then the person is guilty of that crime, even though the law is wrong and the crime is fake charges. They still are saying that if I said it's a crime that the sky is blue, well, we'd have to convict on that, right? Because the sky is blue, even if that shouldn't be a federal offense that the sky is blue. So hang on real quick. What's up, Linz? Okay, I gotta wrap this up. One quick thing that my host house said to me last night that I thought was great. They said, if you can't carry a weapon in the presence of a federal officer without it being a crime, the only other time you can't carry a weapon in the presence of anybody is if you've lost your Second Amendment rights, right? If you're a felon and you don't have a Second Amendment right. So basically what they're saying is anytime the king arrives, you become a criminal. You become guilty. You become a felon and you lose your Second Amendment right, which is pretty crazy to say to somebody who has no criminal record, who has their right to bear arms. We all have our right to bear arms, but per the government standard has the right to bear arms. And yet if a federal agent walks up, that person becomes guilty and unable to possess a weapon. These people at this stand-up all had their guns, and just about every one of them were holstered on their hips. So to say that that is breaking the law says that the United States Constitution is void and America no longer exists. Because whether you have a pink hat on or a gun on your hip, it doesn't matter. It should not matter. This is America. This is not Nazi Germany. And based by their standards in there, as soon as the king arrives, all your rights are stripped, and you become a servant of the king and his people. There's John, and so anyway, David, everyone's marching again. I told them I'd come, but I'm gonna head out. So probably not gonna be done today because the prosecutor loves the sound of his voice. Oh, what is that?
I can't take it to the courthouse. They banned me from it, so I gotta bring it out here.
Oh, okay, got it. Good night. What was I saying? The prosecutor is ridiculous. Let's just say that one more time. And the judge is ridiculous. And I'm sorry that it upsets people when I say this, but the defense team is ridiculous. And our justice system is ridiculous. And the fact that Facebook is evidence used against you is absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that I got kicked off the top steps when I was walking through from the other parking lot with my flag this morning is ridiculous, especially when all the people around me have guns on them and they're afraid of my sign that says appeal to heaven. That's pretty ridiculous. So let's make ridiculous the word today. The United States government is behaving in a very ridiculous manner at this time. And that's just a little side note from we the people. We're not anti-government, we're limited government, which is exactly what our founding fathers were. And doesn't make us bad. That just makes us wanting balance, and this government doesn't want balance. Anything you do against them is a crime. If you woke up this morning and left your house, you probably committed a felony or two, and that should not be. Thanks, Gillis. I'm kind of burnt out on shows, to be honest. I just sat and watched FBI shows, you know, from Longbow, and listen to them talk about how against BLM they were, the producers, and yet they were the actual FBI. No rights were read to remain silent. You know, why we have the right to remain silent is beyond me, because if you're under investigation, they don't tell you that they're investigating you and that you have the right to remain silent. They just bait you and entrap you into saying things thinking that you're going on a TV show. So I'm kind of burnt out on the whole idea of radio shows, and I'm not quite sure enough people care at this point what's going on. Courtroom is packed again today. That's great, and there's a great crowd out here, but boy, America, we've got some problems. And if you don't believe me, go back and watch the videos of the cows being shot. Go ahead back and watch the videos of the cows being brought back home and how the people peaceably did that, and then tell me how that gets you 93 years in a federal jail as a domestic terrorist. Welcome to America, guys. We've got some work to do. Definitely make some phone calls if you can, and let the elected officials know that the people are not happy about this. They're sleeping on the job. We're tired of legislation without representation, and it's time for our people that are supposed to be representing us to wake up, because at the Bunkerville stand-up, the only people representing the people were the people. Anybody who had a badge on was there to enforce unconstitutional laws. So when the government starts behaving this way and so far out of their boundaries, the people have no choice but to do exactly what they did in Bunkerville. And it was beautiful, and the videos were beautiful. And I sure as heck hope there's at least one proud American on this jury that's watching that video in there thinking that's exactly what those men should have done. They discussed a few times why they didn't get run out, and a few times the guys in their videos said, we didn't get run out and mowed over like some of these other protesters because we were armed. You do not exercise your First Amendment right without your Second Amendment right, or you get maced in the face. And they said, we didn't want to get maced, we wanted to be heard. We wanted to make sure people were safe, and therefore the only way to do that with the government we're under is to be armed. That is the purpose of the Second Amendment. If you don't like it, leave the country. I'm sorry, that's just the way that it's supposed to be. So that's it. God bless you guys. And defense should start about before the end of the day if the prosecution can shut it. He's like me, doesn't know when to stop. Apparently he's making a whole lot more money than I am, so what's up with that? Anyway, he could end up going the rest of the day, and we could end up in closing arguments tomorrow for the defense. They don't work on Fridays, the jury, so that would mean that deliberations would not even start until Monday, and I anticipate it's going to take them a few days, so because of all the counts that they have. So I don't see this wrapping up anytime immediately soon, but hopefully maybe in the next week and a half, this will be over and we'll have our not guilty verdict, because we are begging that. I know you guys care, Deborah. I just mean as a whole nation, we have to be apathetic, or we wouldn't be where we are today. And if God isn't showing up for us, then we as a people have to ask ourselves why. Why has God abandoned? Why has God abandoned us? What is He wanting to teach us? How do we get our hearts to turn back to Him so we can receive His blessing? Ultimately, this is His fight. He says you don't even have to fight. All you have to do is stand. So that's what we're praying for. Stand however you can around this nation from your home. Get on your knees, and then once you're done praying, you get up and stand, and the Lord will fight this fight for us. So that's it. God bless you guys. Love you.